Outside our hotel, we get to see It's Passion Week here. We are headed to the upper room and we're going to walk around the city. The current city walls have been built by Turkish in 1500, and we just found two guys who constructed the walls and took a shortcut and didn't include the old city of David, and the Sultan killed them, and here they are buried, the two guys who screwed up the city walls. I can't really remember how much of the city I've shown you, but here's the Jaffa Gate where we're staying, and this is the old Turkish wall outside. And the city has been destroyed and rebuilt many times, so nothing's the same as when Jesus was here, but we can, from that reconstruction we saw on day 2, we can understand where a lot of things were. But it's still cool that there's ancient city walls, but just not super ancient. And this is outside the city, the old city it's called, and this is the modern Jerusalem. How you feeling, babe?
Fine.
What are you excited to see today?
I think the Church of Holy Sepulchre.
What's that?
That is traditionally where Jesus was crucified.
And buried.
Oh, and buried.
I think they have the burial there too. Lots of walking in the city today.
I know, I'm going to make a guess. I'm going to guess 16,000 steps today.
Cool.
That'll be our highest, so we'll find out. Oh.
Right by the Armenian quarter of the city. And the Armenians hold in special place James, St. James, because they believe that James was the first apostle to bring the gospel to Armenia. And this is the area that they came back and occupied. And they believe, and St. James probably buried here and lived here. The upper room of the Last Supper. This site has been used by many different people. You know, the Muslims have a holy site here. This faces Mecca, and many different Muslims also believed to this place. They connected to the prophet Jesus that they even have in the Quran, and the prophet David below, which is his burial place. And the cool thing I learned too was the connection between the place of the Last Supper and the place of the Pentecost, with it being referred to, usually translated, they were all together. Could also mean in the same place. It also could be translated, they were in the same place. So the same place as the Last Supper is where Pentecost could have happened, when they were gathered together. And it makes sense that they would have come back to the same place where they gathered with Jesus. And also, in Peter's speech at Pentecost, he refers to David's burial place, David's tomb. And this is also the site, historical site of David's burial place. So many connections in one place.
John 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. There's our 5 chapters, if I know how to count correctly. And 5 chapters. And so here John kind of gives us this incredible just pause moment in the life of Christ. Prior to this, all the other 12 chapters was 3.5 years of his ministry. Now we have about 6 to 8 hours of his ministry, the largest section of Scripture looking at the life of Christ. It intentionally slows down and goes into these nuances to which I'm not going to be able to explain or expound upon. You might have your favorite section of verses, your beloved verses, your life verse, which I may not even quote, read, look at, and you'll be heartbroken. Please don't throw any stones at me just yet, because this is like the last and will testament of Jesus. He's bringing his disciples in closer. He's going to start to speak some mysterious things to which I can't even fully comprehend. My mind is blown. We start getting into the depths of what he is trying to display to his disciples in this intimacy. The disciples to which later we would call the Last Supper.
Down the Gehenna, right?
Yes.
Is that how you say it?
Yes.
That's that valley, and that's like death.
We're
hell.
going to cross the Kidron.
And then we're going to turn
We're
left.
heading to the Garden of Gethsemane from the upper room, coming down along this city wall.
Look at that cemetery, too.
This isn't the
Jewish
exact
cemetery.
route Jesus would have taken because the city walls were different back then. Doing a little Turkish shortcut right now, but in the general trajectory that Jesus would have taken from the Last Supper location to the Garden of Gethsemane on Thursday.
That's what I did with all my pictures in the winter. Deleting the ones that kind of sat for a while. So I was going up and down
This is the
stairs for
ancient southern entrance
6 to 8 weeks.
to the Temple Mount. We haven't seen this before.
It was not a pleasant experience.
And look at all the graves on Mount of Olives. Unbelievable.
They crossed here at this bottom when they looked at this structure too. This structure comes to us from probably 3rd or 2nd century BC. It means it stood here in the 1st century AD. And for long centuries, already in modern times from medieval ages, they believed that this is the tombstone for the burial of Absalom. You remember this rebellion son of King David? So they used to call it Absalom's tomb. And here
Behind us is a burial tomb. And up here is a giant monument. This is known as Absalom's tomb, but it's later time than him. But regardless, this tomb would have been here first century. Jesus would have walked by this monument on his way to Gethsemane on this path that we're taking. Walking where Jesus walked again, up to the Mount of Olives, to Gethsemane. Still olive trees all around today. Sorry, the eastern wall of the Temple Mount from the Kidron Valley. It's huge.
So it'd be interesting to research which slope faces the sun.
Right. Hey guys, come a little bit closer, everyone. Let's listen. Joshua has a question.
The olive trees are real old, not 2,000 years old, but some up to maybe 1,000 years old. Apparently this is the non-business.
احنا موجودين في بستان الجثمانية. ايه بستان الجثمانية.
We're headed to the St. Peter Church that remembers when Peter denied Christ 3 times before the rooster crowed.
And then please take your seats in the second half of the hall in case we need to share it with another group.
How many floors down are we?
Hey guys, when you're coming, be careful here with your hands. And go to the very bottom, don't stop on the staircase.
Bedrock. So we're in a pit where they would have brought Jesus to talk to the high priest from this place first. And up above where we were sitting and looking down this hole, Jesus, the high priest would have been, because he wasn't able to talk to criminals who had blood on their hands because it would have made him unclean. So they'd bring the prisoners down here to be interviewed by the high priest before, so they wouldn't be in the same room as the high priest. So in the John 18 account, we have Jesus talking to the priest and then being struck and then being brought to the priest. So it's a weird sequence of events that can't be explained except for the discovery of this and the system that they would use, where he would actually talk to the priest from down here in the pit before he would come before the priest in his presence. It's amazing. So we know for sure that Jesus was down here. We know for sure that he was in that cavern and as a holding cell. We know for sure that Jesus was up there in the upper room in the presence of the high priest.
There are kind of halls, and that's how they used to tie people with ropes. Ropes that you see here, they are modern ones. They just put them as an example. They could be chains as well. We don't really know. Please remember that it's not in prison in our current understanding, right? It's not to hold a person for 7, 20 years here, right? It's just to hold all of the suspicious persons. We don't know for how long. Probably sometime there were periods of a couple of hours, like for Jesus, if high priest came on the same day to judge, but others probably spent here more hours or even a couple of days.
So we've just learned a lot of the timeline of Jesus' final days before crucifixion. And we're here at Caiaphas' house, the high priest, the place where he would have had his trial. And we just learned these ancient steps here. Jesus would have walked up and down a few times, starting at the upper room up there, and down to the Mount of Olives. He prayed, and then was arrested, and then brought back up here to Caiaphas' house. This would have been like the courtyard area where Peter would have been waiting, where Peter, the only disciple who stayed, would have was questioned 3 times. That's what this represents. He's denying of Christ 3 times to the girl, to the guards, to the man.
Those have been connected
Before the rooster crowed.
likely, himself right here before he goes.
These are ancient Jewish homes with mikvahs, bathtub things, where they would get ceremonially cleansed. And then Caiaphas' office, headquarters, the high priest. And the road to the Pool of Siloam. And up to the upper room. It would be through the poor areas. And closer would be to the more wealthy areas. There's a rooster on the top, marking the site. So Peter denied Christ 3 times before the rooster crowed. All bullet holes in Zion Gate from when in 1967 Israel took control of the old city.
We'll try to gather the film like this picture. So guys, when you're walking by the ruins, just have a good look and try to remember what you see here. By my side, we have relatively big space to gather the whole party, and it's a nice picture of the ruins before it was.
This is the palace.
First century palace, known as Pilate's Palace.
So let's look here at this beautiful mosaic floor, and that's where you're going to see those stone jars and cups, etc., etc. It all belongs to such a huge mansion like this one. And of course, it's not the Gothic style palace, right? We are talking here about Middle East.
So what they found here is a big palace, Herodian palace. Very, very clear it was Jewish occupied by what they found. So this is one of the likely places that Pilate would have been staying, because Pilate was not from Jerusalem. Pilate was from Caesarea Maritime. So there's 3 possible places for where Jesus came before Pilate, but this is a good one. And we're going to be taking our walk, our Via de la Rosa, the way of suffering, our walk to follow the path of Jesus. Not the Catholic, so this wouldn't be the Catholic traditional walk that we'll be doing, that we did a little bit of one of the first days. But if you conclude that this is a likely candidate for where Jesus met with Pilate, we're going to take a walk to the Holy Sepulchre, the Catholic Church site of the crucifixion from here. So here's where we'll start our alternative Via de la Rosa, the walk of the way of suffering. Yeah. It's an ancient shofar.
So far, so good.
Bless you.
That way.
I almost didn't make it through. That was gaggy. Oh my word.
Yeah,
It was smell, not sight. Total smell. Oh, I was like, I check on you. Did that bother you at all?
No.
Babe, tough. Took a picture of the wool shop for Alyssa.
Yeah. I saw that.
Shane. No, he's knitting. Oh, I don't know.
Both. Mostly knitting.
Holy Sepulchre. And in fact, Holy Sepulchre is not one single church. It's a combination of many of them. So here we are coming to this complex called Holy Sepulchre. Let's proceed this way.
Oh, did you say my name?
No.
I know, I'm gonna stop here.
Sonlife, so 6 communities at all, or 6 confessions. They share this whole complex in their properties, Copts, Ethiopians, Armenians, and then inside we have Greeks, Franciscans, and small Syriac chapel too. So just a general idea about where you are, such a mix of different cultures and Christian approach, and for every denomination you have different traditions, different customs, so
50 words, 7 statements. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. Woman, behold your son. Behold your mother. Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. I am thirsty. It is finished. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. 50 words, 7 statements. Jesus speaks forgiveness, hope, care, intimacy, vulnerability, victory, trust. Through Jesus, we can be forgiven of our sin, all of it. Through Jesus, we can confidently claim the hope of heaven. Through Jesus, we become a part of God's family and care for one another. Through Jesus, we can call God our Father. No longer are we orphaned, never forsaken. He pulls us close as dearly loved children. Through Jesus, our deepest longings are satisfied. We come thirsty. We leave satisfied. Through Jesus, we have victory over sin and death. The battle is won. Through Jesus, we can trust the Father with everything. We can put it all in His hands, even our very lives, knowing that He is good. Our Father can be trusted. 50 words, each spoken purposefully, each one packed with meaning, each one worth remembering, each one for me.
Fortune cookies made.
Right. Church of the Holy Sepulchre. 6 different Christian traditions. This is the spot of the crucifixion and the burial and the resurrection. It does fit that it wasn't within the city walls, but there's just very little remaining. I have my hat on. Spot. Lines for the tomb. the place where they believe Jesus' body was prepared with spices and oil. So everyone's rubbing things on it. This is the mausoleum over the believed to be traditional tomb that Jesus was buried in. But the original tomb, there's nothing left of it. This is the line. Get in. It's pretty neat though. The people from all over the world here to see this. All these different languages being spoken in different cultures. Jesus really changed the world. So this is a more traditional tomb that was found near the site. It does give it some credibility to being in a burial area, but it hasn't been as built upon. But more interesting to see something that was closer to the original tomb.
There's a big candle in there. A candle in there. Artificial candle.
All right, Brian. Are you videoing right now?
Group picture? Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna turn on fire. Let's not.
No, you're fine. I was just wanting to make sure it wasn't.
It fits a body. It's sticky.
Oh,
Why is
I
it
don't mind. It's
sticky?
because it's gross.
Oh, that's all the leftover.
Why is this out of focus? What's going on with your camera? I can't get this
I
thing
don't
to
like
focus.
this.
I can't get this to focus
Gee,
for
I
anything.
wonder why.
Brian's
Do you-
tomb. Smile.
Oh, there we go.
There is a candle. Man, look at that.
All right.
I don't like
I'm
that
ready to
it's,
get it.
I don't like that it's sticky.
Yeah, I don't like that it's hot.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's wax.
Yeah, but you know what yellow people. It sounds like y'all, right?
Y'all, yeah,
Hey y'all, yalla y'all.
Hey, y'all.
That goes probably
Hey y'all. We are as many as possible.
Jay, did you get in?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Did you go in?
In the, like, in
Well,
the
just
thing.
in there at all.
In the thing. I got in the thing, but I didn't get in the thing.
The thing.
There's Brian in the tomb.
Don't put that on YouTube.
The amount of people here is pretty crazy. It's like a rock concert.
I need to do that.
He's not here. He's risen, just as he said. What are your thoughts on this place?
I thought it was unfortunately not special because it was so ornate and gaudy. That's the really honest truth. It was hard to find significance because I was distracted and so busy.
I think it's interesting because there's been a lot of stuff that is evidence that has shown this was the spot where where Jesus was crucified and buried and resurrected. But yeah, it's crazy in there, and there's so little left of the original, and it's nothing like it would have been at that time. That it's a totally different experience than.
And people are finding a lot of significance in this, which is great, but I think they must feel that they're connecting with God, but you don't connect to God through a physical place, you know?
Right.
So they're weeping over the preparation stone and over the bedrock where he was crucified, which I can understand, but
Well,
it just
did
feels like
you
they're
see
missing
them
something.
rubbing things on the bedrock
Yeah.
stone where they where Jesus' body was prepared?
Yep.
Like that is showing that's almost idolatry because they're putting so much significance on things in a place. And yeah, maybe Jesus' body was prepared there, but he's not in the tomb anymore. He's risen. That's what I kept thinking when we were around the tomb. Like we're all surrounding this place, like trying to find some significance or a spiritual experience, but Jesus isn't there anymore. He's risen. Like this is interesting historically, but spiritually there's very little value to this place, I guess.
The value is that he's risen.
Yeah.
I mean, but they're mourning his death, and it is significant, but it's just hard to find significance when it feels overdone.
I do find it pretty awe-inspiring, the amount of people here and the amount of cultures and languages represented here. There's people from every spot of the world here, and these people are coming to see where Jesus died and was resurrected. So there's the influence of Christianity, the influence of Jesus' life is all over the world, and that's one thing we don't really see in our narrow
We live in
community.
a white Christian Reformed community that doesn't have diversity in race nor in religion.
So you see, like, Christianity is way bigger than we ever think about. And
even
it
to
is
think of,
so
like,
worldwide. And, we can talk about the different beliefs and who has it right and who has it wrong, but all these people are here to see Jesus, so we have that in common. Pretty crazy.